Hello, and today we have this guitar. This is a Reverend RG Sus in Venetian gold, and as you can see, it's got a lovely golden hue. RG Sus, that stands for Reeves Gabriels, and Sus is for sustainer. There's a sustainer, or sustainiac, I should say, pickup in the body. Again, Reeves Gabriel's probably best known for his work with David Bowie in firstly Tin Machine, and then latterly on albums such as Earthling. I think that's probably the big one. That's a good one. Outside, that whole period until later on when they stopped working together. And latterly he's been working with The Cure, but this is again a couple of he's got about 2 or 3 signature guitars with the Reverend brand, and we've covered the Reverend brand before. Now this one I was hoping would be in the Harwood collection, but it wasn't. There wasn't an RG Sus, but I saw one on Anderton's second hand, and before you could say Jack Robinson, I'd grabbed my credit card and I'd bought it. It was just like that because I really wanted to try one. Before we get into the meat and potatoes of things, I want to talk about sustainer guitars. Should you have a sustainer guitar? You probably don't need one. It depends if you like doing certain kinds of things with guitar. Do you like long, infinitely sustained notes? You may not care for that. Again, it all depends on the style of music you do. Do you want to create, I don't know, kind of like ambient music? You know, if that's of no interest to you, then a sustainer guitar is probably something you don't need. How about this? What if you're recording into your computer DAW without an amp, and you want to recreate kind of feedbacky sounds? You know, that's one utilization of this. of a Sustainer type guitar. So again, they're for certain people, probably not for others. Now, we'd already featured on this channel the Ed O'Brien Sustainer guitar. It was a signature guitar from Fender. I had 2 of those. The first one was part of the Harwood collection, but I was never happy with it. I could never get the Sustainer to kind of trigger cleanly across the body, across the neck, across the whole thing. Fiddled around with it, sold it quickly. And then later on, I saw another one second and I thought, I'm going to have another crack at it. Tried it again. That one was a bit better. Not much though, a bit better. And then this came along, and this blew the Ed O'Brien Strat out of the water. The problem with the Ed O'Brien Strat is that uses a Sustainer pickup rather than a Sustainiac. They're 2 different ones. One's by Fernandez, one is Sustainiac. The other thing with the Ed O'Brien guitar is the radius of the neck. For a Sustainer to work, you have to have the bridge, and the saddles straight, absolutely straight. You want all the strings straight, and for that you need a very flat neck, no radius on the neck. Like a 14 or 14 plus to get a really nice straight fretboard. The Ed O'Brien one didn't have that, so it was always never going to feel right or work right with the Sustainer. I'd need to remove the neck and buy a Fender compatible neck that had a very flat fretboard. This has that. And so I realised that while I like the idea of having a 3 pickup Fender Stratocaster with the Sustainer, that was the worst way of utilising it. And then I saw this and I thought, I'm going to give that a go. Reverend do Sustainer guitars with, like I say, the Reeves Gables signature. Schecter have got one. I've never tried those, but I think they use the Sustainiac as well. And Bernie, but Bernie are kind of gone now because they were Fernandez and they've kind of gone out. I think they've gone out of business. And I've never been able to pick up a Bernie Sustainer with a tremolo reasonably priced. Their price has always been a bit too much for my liking. So we got this one in Venetian gold. I think this is an earlier one. I'm not sure exactly when it was made because I'm not sure how to read Reverend serial numbers. But you can't get the Venetian gold anymore. I don't know if it was a limited edition colour. Funny enough, whilst doing this, I was searching. There's a new version. There's a Mark II, just been announced 2 days ago. 2 days ago, there's a Mark II RG sus with an extra pickup. So it's a 3 pickup, same shape, but you've got a middle pickup, which has got me interested. That's in wine red, but I like this one for the time being. This is a success. By now, you should have heard the Sustainiac in action, because I would have edited in some of my performance. I used the word performance in the loosest, vaguest terms. So you love specs, I love specs. Let's do the specs. It features a Carina solid body. Again, Carina wood is, yeah, it's popular. It's again supposed to extra sustain, they reckon, with that. Venetian gold finish. These have rail hammer, Reeves Gables signature bridge, and a Sustainiac neck pickup. More about that later because I have thoughts on those. The bridge is a Wilson. I'll get it right in a minute. Wilkinson. I always think of razors when you say Wilkinson. WVS50 2K tremolo. It's a floating tremolo, which means it's just kind of floating there. Look, I don't think you can see it float. Just see it float. That means you can go both directions. You can wiggle it in both directions. It doesn't hit anything. Doesn't hit a block or anything. It's just floating there, like on the breeze. Roasted maple neck. It's got an ebony fretboard with clay marker dots. 25.5 inch scale length, 12-inch radius. Though it does feel like a very flat. It's very flat. I mean, I'd have put it up to more of a 14. 22 jumbo frets, dual action truss rod with headstock access, which we love. And the tuners are those lovely locking ones that you get. They're called pin lock tuners that Reverend do, and I think locking tuners are the way to go. 43mm width nut, and it's bonite. And the controls are, you have a volume and tone there, three-way switch, which is nice and chunky, and you have the sustainer on and off, on, and then you have a three-way selector. There's the main setting. Then you have a split second setting, and then you have like a an octave overtone setting, which makes it kind of go shrill. But in the middle, you can kind of get more overtones. It's like a mix of the two. And then up here, this knob here, it does something called bass contouring. So it basically gets rid of all the bottom end and makes it very, very bright. But again, more thoughts about that later, because I have thoughts. As a guitar, again, it's kind of an offset, so it sits nice. I kind of like it on my lap. The Reverend guitars, all the Reverend guitars I've tried, and again, some of them have been to my taste, some of them are not. You know, it's again, some of them are part of the Harwood collection. Again, I'd love to have kept them all, but what always impresses me about the Reverend guitars is the quality. They always feel like a quality product. You know, everything is just. It just, you know, from the binding, you go over this and it's just, you know, lovely bit of wood at the back there, you know, roasted maple, bound neck, you know, the frets are, there's no sprout or anything, just a quality instrument. Everything feels nice, including the switches, chunky switches, the tremolos. I love the Wilkinson tremolo. I'm not sure if this is the first one I've tried, but you know, love it. And then we come to the elephant in the room, the actual sustainer. And again, by now, you should have heard the sustainer in action. And this is beefy. This is not like the one in the Ed O'Brien Strat. This one sustains cleanly over the entire neck. It didn't need tweaking or setting up. It just works. In fact, it's too strong, it's too sensitive, because you have to mute some of the strings sometimes because they start to vibrate sympathetically. Depends, you know, what you're playing, and so there is no problem of just hitting it and it's sustaining. It won't now because it's not plugged in, but you get the idea. So the sustainer here is magnificent. It works. This is exactly what I wanted from the Ed O'Brien guitar. That one was weedy, it sometimes used to peter out, or again, dead spots, but this is solid. The only downside on that is if you're on the higher strings, or mainly on the IE, you have to kind of have it in the, because the tone often acts as a sustaining strength control and tone and a bit of a tone button as well when you've got the sustainer activated. And when you turn it down, it does tend to lose sustain on the high E. But again, I fiddled around with the pickups, but it's just you tend to have it on. You need it on kind of halfway for that to still. But again, this is just a minor niggle. It's just, you know, this is niggling. It works, you know. It actually works. I'm being hypercritical. It works a million times better than the Ed O'Brien. It's like night and day. So when I got this, I immediately sold the Ed O'Brien because I don't need you anymore. This does the thing I want it to do, and it feels infinitely higher quality than the Ed O'Brien guitar. The Fender, you know, it feels like a made in Mexico Fender. There's nothing wrong with that, but this feels several notches in terms of quality above, and it makes the noise. It makes the noise. It makes the noises. So what's the downside? The only downside I don't like is the rail hammer. Again, these rail hammers pickups. These rail hammers here. These are like Reverend's own brand. It's what they put in, and they are a little bright. You know, little bright, a little hot as well. You may have heard some distortion there, because on some of the demos, because I didn't turn my audio interface down high enough and didn't put a compressor on the channel. I forgot to do that, because you need to do that to keep this thing in control. It's a beast. It's hot. The pickups are fiery. You know, it's like, oh, it's a bit too intense. That, you know, this is a good thing. It's got character. But I tend to like things that are a little bit creamier. I like to be able to get the murk out of the pickup. I like it to do everything. I like to be a bit bright at one end and a bit murky down the other. So it's bright down this end, but it's even brighter. This is the weird thing. It's even brighter at the neck. Normally, if you do these things, the neck pickup is usually a little bit murkier. And but this, because it's a sustainiac pickup, incredibly bright. No bottom end at all. And that's my criticism. That's my only criticism. But you can tweak that, you know, with EQ in. I mean, I use a DAW, but you can tweak that problem. I'm just saying, out of the box, plug straight in. It's a very bright, intense pickup at the neck, and a very, very bright. And then you've got a knob that allows you to roll the bass off. You don't need that. You need the knob to actually increase the bass sound. But that's my personal taste. We're talking my personal taste. But I still think it's a great guitar. These are just niggles. That's just a niggle. That's just a minor criticism. But other than that, this is a truly great guitar, you know. And again, the Reverend guitars, every one I've tried has been, you know, good. Often not to my taste because of the rail hammers. I think the rail, I'd have to, you know, I just find them just a little bit, you know, toppy. That's best expression. But other than that, the guitars themselves I think are nice. The neck is a bit chunkier than I'm used to. Again, that's another niggle. But it is a solid neck and it sustains. It really does sustain. It resonates really well, even unplugged. It resonates nicely. And other than that, no complaints. I think it really is, you know, a top quality guitar. Let's see. And I do love the locking tuners. And I like the gold. They actually managed to get the gold colour looking right. Not like, look, is that gold? I suppose it is a kind of gold, but this is a more sunny gold, Venetian gold, as they say. So yeah, I like the way they got the colour. It's a sunny colour, and that's it really. There's not much else to add. I think it's a really good guitar. I mean, it's second-hand guitar, and I really like it. It does the thing I want it to do. If you're looking for a sustainer guitar with a floating trem, so you can do the wiggles and the dive bombs and the wobbly bits, it can do that. Yeah, a total and utter endorsement from me, and it is night and day from this to the Ed O'Brien. They don't make that anymore. That's discontinued. I would approach with caution if you're looking for a sustainer guitar. If you want one that works across the fretboard without any fiddling around, again, if you change the strings, or you know, even changes in atmosphere, you know your neck bends slightly, you had to readjust this pickup height on the Ed O'Brien. This one is solid, probably too powerful, because like I said, you do have to mute things when they start sustaining sympathetically with, you know, other strings on the guitar. So yeah, that's the review. Wholehearted recommendation from me of the Reverend of RG Sus in Venetian gold. And oh yeah, there's the battery compartment there as well, because again, if you've got a sustainer, you will need to put a 9-volt battery in the box to make it work. So yeah, that is the review. brilliant, fantastic. So glad that I saw this on Facebook, because it was a Facebook advert for Andertons, and this was staring back at me, and I went, I'm having it, because I've always wanted to try one, and it was very hard to find one at a good price. I didn't want to pay first-hand prices, because these are quality instruments. I got it for a very good second-hand price, and I'm very, 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 very pleased with it. Lovely. Anyway, thank you for watching. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. Hopefully it's enlightened you to the whole sustainer thing. It's like having an EBow without having an EBow. It's like having an EBow built into the guitar. And again, very useful if you're doing certain kinds of music, if you like certain kinds of sounds. Again, I'm a big fan of people like Michael Brook, who creates something called the Infinite Guitar. You'll hear that on his recordings, but also U2, because he used the Edge, used his technique for his guitar playing. So if you like those long kind of sustained notes, or you like being creative with ambient sounds, again, this put through a big reverb or some delay, or melodic delay, or whatever you want to call it, and some reverb, you can just float off into the universe with it. And yeah, so thoroughly recommended if you want a guitar that sustains forever, or at least until the battery runs out. And that's it. Like and subscribe. I have to say that, it's the law, otherwise the people from YouTube come around and beat me up. Yeah, they beat me up. They beat me with my own guitars. That's not true, but it sounds dramatic. And yeah, thank you for watching. There's only one more thing left to say. By now you should know what that is. That is ta-ta.